A small, and I stress very small, indie studio, Thorium Games, has created an adorable dungeon crawler roguelike adventure called Undermine. Does this underground gold mine have what it takes to keep you diving into chasms again and again? Or is this mine better left off condemned? Find out in our review. The story of Undermine is a simple one. You play the role of a peasant miner tasked with exploring a terribly dangerous gold mine to help your kingdom find out what's causing their horrible earthquakes. The running gag is that each time you die, you're replaced with another peasant worker to continue where you left off. It's pretty funny to see at the game's main menu the endless lines of miners waiting to go down into the darkness to gather gold and relics. On your way, you'll meet fun and interesting characters that will help you on your quest to survive. People like Waylon the Blacksmith, who will help forge you better weapons and armor. Black Rabbit, who has a weird way of running her shops and provides you with gambling minigames. Baba the Alchemist, who will help you brew potions, and loads of others. Right off the bat, you'll be able to jump into Undermine. The style and mechanics are on par with classic games like Link to the Past, and even more recent ones like The Binding of Isaac and Enter the Gungeon. However, Undermine tries a few new things to make it stand out among the many other roguelike dungeon crawlers out there. Of course, you can swing with your pickaxe to attack enemies, drop bombs you require to blow up rocks, damage creatures, or discover secret rooms, a la Legend of Zelda style. You can also throw your pickaxe like a boomerang, and I have to say, this mechanic in particular felt incredibly satisfying. Aside from these, there are two big mechanics you'll need to get accustomed to. The first is the jumping. Your peasant miner can jump to avoid chasms, traps, and damage from enemy attacks. While there has been jumping in top-down games before, it can take a bit of getting used to here, but once you have it down, it feels really solid. The second is the way enemies attack, and how you take damage. This was something that really interested me. In most games, whether classic or modern, merely touching an enemy would hurt you. In Undermine, almost all enemies have an attack animation, and it's mostly the only way they can hurt you, meaning you can bump into enemies and not take damage, unless they lash out their attack animation. It's a little weird at first, but in a good way, knowing that if you bump into most enemies, you won't take damage. Like most dungeon crawlers, you enter a dungeon, or in this case, gold mine, that spans across multiple floors. As you dive deeper into the mine, the enemies get tougher and rewards get better. You traverse these dungeons via a top-down view, and explore the dangers of the mine one room at a time. Each dungeon level and room are procedurally generated, to ensure you get a new experience every time you die and have to start over. While you explore the dungeons, you'll mainly be on the hunt for gold, but also gather relics that augment and improve your abilities. These can be things like increasing your critical damage, giving you more health or armor, adding elemental damage to attacks, and other special attributes and abilities. There's also a blessing and curse system that invites you to tempt fate to acquire a powerful item at the cost of a debuff, or debuffs. These range from things not that bad, like slower attack speed, to terrible things, like permanently losing 1 max health every time you defeat an enemy. It's a fun risk-reward system that will require you to make some tough calls when you're having a particularly good run. The RNG aspect is fun and will keep you coming back for more after each run. But be aware, because the game is procedurally generated, you will have bad runs. I had a run once where the game decided not to give me any keys to open doors, so I had very little relics or power. Other times, I had so many keys I didn't know what to do with them. But regardless of the RNG factor, I still had a blast every time. While exploring the dungeons and mines, aside from the relics, you'll gather gold, thorium, and blueprints. Gold is what you'll use to upgrade equipment, purchase potions, bombs, and other items that can help you on your dungeon run. Thorium, cleverly named after the developer studio, is used to craft and unlock new relics that will appear randomly in the dungeon. And blueprints unlock new items and crafting options to the game's central hub. This being a roguelike game, death is of course a major part of it. And make no mistake, you will die in Undermine, a lot. Upon dying, you'll lose all relics and a percentage of gold acquired, but you keep any thorium and blueprints you find. You'll respawn as a new character, but keep everything else you've upgraded over the course of your playthrough. This ends up being a very addictive game loop of diving into a dungeon, gathering relics and gold, dying, upgrading a few things, and trying again. It's hard to find something negative about a game that has clearly had a lot of passion, time, and energy put into its design. But the game does have one minor flaw. While the art and visual style of the game look great, it can be difficult at times to understand what's a wall and what's a hole. It's a minor gripe, but one worth noting. Perhaps the biggest issue I had during my time with Undermine were the handful of cheap deaths. Like I mentioned before, this has to mainly do with the art style and combination of the top-down angle. I'd fall into holes a lot more than I cared for, and was damaged by spike traps more often than not because I thought quite frankly I was safe to jump or walk there. Eventually, I just started to avoid edges of holes altogether, since my character's placement seemed to be always a little off. Dying to your own hubris is one thing, but cheap deaths are never fun. Or maybe I'm just really bad at video games. All in all, I really enjoyed my time with Undermine. It scratches all the right itches for players who enjoy dungeon crawler adventure games, and is different enough to separate itself from other games in the genre. The characters are funny, the art style and cheeky throwback to other games are simply delightful, and the game loop is incredibly addicting. You'll easily lose dozens of hours exploring the vast mines and dungeons in Undermine. The game is on Game Pass, so there's really no excuse not to give it a go. I also need to mention that I think it's devastating it's not on Nintendo Switch. I would really love this on Nintendo Switch. Clint, Derek, make it happen. For more video reviews and everything else gaming related, you're already in the right place. You're on Shacknews.com.